Zidoo is a company that has sort of flown under the radar as far as the home theater market goes, which is actually really surprising to me because I feel like they offer products that really stand out as far as capabilities and prices are concerned. And with that in mind, Zidoo has recently released their latest series of network streaming media players, which feature a whole host of improvements over their previous generation. In this review, our focus is on the new Z2000 Pro model, which falls smack dab in the middle of their updated line for 2023. So today we'll go over all the new improvements and discuss why we think this is one of the best solutions out there for managing and playing back your media collections. And right off the bat, I want to mention that this player isn't meant to stream internet content like a Roku or Nvidia Shield. So if you're interested in that kind of device, then you may want to look elsewhere. With that said, if you're looking for a device that can help you best leverage a collection of ripped Blu-ray and 4K Blu-ray movies, then this is a device that can do that while touting some benefits that other solutions just can't compete with. Inside the box, you'll find the player itself, an owner's manual, and a much nicer remote than the previous models came with. I mention this because many people complained about the old remotes being overly large and not very ergonomic. This new remote feels comfortable in the hand and is fully backlit, which can be activated simply by picking it up or pushing the light button. You also get an HDMI cable, a power cord, and finally a reference guide for the new remote. Taking a look at the Z2000, half of the front panel is covered with a nice aluminum that opens up to reveal a hidden hard drive bay, which is able to support hard drives up to 16 terabytes. The other half of the player is in a high gloss plastic that has this unique diamond pattern which covers the LED display, and right in the middle is the power button. Moving around to the back from left to right, you get an on-off switch and an AC power socket. Next to that is the outlet for the built-in cooling fan. Next is a gigabit LAN port, a USB 3.0 port, an HDMI 2.1 port which supports 4K at 60 Hz, HDR10 Plus as well as Dolby Vision and Atmos, and an optical out, a coaxial out, an RCA video jack, left and right stereo jacks, and finally you get an RS-232 port. The player is extremely well built, and I personally think Zidoo has done a great job making it look like a higher end piece of gear. The chassis is made from aluminum and the top and sides are metal. Now, as mentioned at the start of this video, performance has increased with these new players, and most of those gains can be attributed to the new quad-core 64-bit processor that Zidoo has gone with. This, along with increasing the amount of RAM from 2 gigs to 4 and making the jump from Android 9 to 11, should make the user experience even better with a snappier interface and noticeable improvements to load times. Turning the unit on for the first time, you'll be prompted to select your language, country, and time zone, and then you can set up your internet connection. As you can see here, I initially set it up on Wi-Fi just for this part of the video, but I do recommend using a wired connection so you don't get buffering while playing 4K movies. Next, you're going to want to update the player's firmware just to make sure everything works as it should. And that's pretty much it for the initial setup. So now we can go ahead and take a look at the menus and features of the Z2000 Pro, which is where I feel a lot of the value of this unit comes from. Zidoo has put a lot of work into building their own in-house user interface on top of Android, which has been optimized for home theater use. And this really is what sets the Zidoo players apart from anything else on the market right now at this price point. On the front page, you get the media center, the poster wall, a music player, apps, and settings. First thing we're going to be taking a look at is the poster wall, so we can add our movies to the player. To do that, we're going to select the sources icon and add sources on the next screen. And since our server runs an SMB share, we're going to select that option here. It will then scan through the network and give you some options. Our movies are on the TGT server, so we select that here. You'll then be prompted to enter your username and password if you have your server configured that way. If you don't use a password to access your server, just select Anonymous here. Once that's done, select the folder on your server that you want to scrape, which for now is the movie folder, hit OK, and start scanning. You'll follow this same process for your TV shows as well as your music, and this may take a while depending on how big your libraries are. Once the player is done scraping, you can go to the movies icon to see all of the available movies. The player did a pretty good job scraping the movies, but there were some problems with the matching. So to check for those, select the unmatched icon and a list of movies that you can rematch will be there. To rematch, just hover over the movie and hit this button on the remote. And again, this can be done in either the unmatched section or the movie section. After selecting the button on the remote, you'll get this menu. Select the rematch option and you'll get this screen. Enter the name of your movie and hit the TMDB button. Then select the matching poster on the left and hit OK. If your posters aren't showing on the left, restart the player and they should be there after the reboot. You'll have to repeat this process for all of the movies the player couldn't identify correctly, which I ended up having to do for about 20 total. You can also use this process to change posters and backgrounds. Once you get your movies sorted out, it's time to start enjoying one of the best features this player has to offer, and that's the poster wall, which in my opinion looks great and has a lot of customization, like being able to change the poster sizes and choose between different layouts in order to get an interface that makes it as easy as possible to browse your collection. This offers a lot more flexibility compared to something like Plex, and you don't have to put up with all the sponsored content they try to push onto you, even if you're just simply trying to browse through your own collection of movies. Selecting a movie will show you all the metadata that goes along with it, and after a short amount of time, a trailer will start playing in the upper right-hand corner. If you have different versions of the same movie in various formats, like MKV or BD folder, those will also appear in this screen as well. We really like this view because all of the information it offers makes it much easier to decide on a movie to watch. And because everyone can see it, nobody has to feel left out. But with that said, another area the Z2000 had a problem with was mismatching collections and metadata. The player is supposed to automatically group movies together if they are from the same series, but in some cases it gets it wrong. For example, all of the Captain America movies were grouped together into a single movie behind this goofy poster, which in order to fix I had to go into 3 times and rematch each movie individually to get the proper collection. I really like the collections feature, but you really have to check it to make sure it doesn't end up hiding some of your movies. Aside from that, settings is where you can customize your Z2000 Pro for your particular setup. And because everyone's system is different, I'm just going to quickly scroll through and show you what's in each section. Playback lets you adjust frame rate, bookmarks, default language, 3D playback, function keys, play mode, forced subtitles, Blu-ray region, downloading subtitles, and digital signage. Next, under display, you have resolution, color settings, HDR to SDR, HDR configuration, Dolby Vision compatible mode, custom EDID, screen scale, screen ratio, picture parameters, screen saver, and wallpaper. Under audio, you get options for HDMI, SPDIF, downmixing native sampling rate, USB audio, pass-through, and volume direct mode. In network, you'll find your Wi-Fi, Ethernet, Bluetooth, and Samba server settings. And in other, you can select your language, HDMI CEC, power mode, hard drive sleep, fan control, front display panel, keyboards, time options, remote control response time, a show weather option, upgrade and update, recovery and reset, and finally there's info about the device itself. Alright, so now I think it's time to give you my thoughts on how well the Z2000 Pro did with movie playback and whether it's worth upgrading if you're using something like an NVIDIA Shield for streaming your local movie collection. Well, I can tell you without a doubt that for me, it's definitely been worth the upgrade. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, well, of course it's worth the upgrade. You were sent one for free to review. And while that's true, it's not exactly the whole story. What actually happened is we reached out to Zidoo asking if we could review one of their products. Unfortunately, we didn't hear back from them, so I just decided to go ahead and purchase a UHD 5000, which is their flagship model, and it ended up costing me about $1,000. I bought it from a UK-based company called Futeco, and they had it to my door within about 4 days, which I thought was pretty amazing. Anyway, after getting the player, I set it up in my dedicated home theater room and started playing around with it, and it wasn't very long before I was absolutely loving this thing. To me, everything about this player was better than the Shield, from the overall picture quality to the much better upscaling that the Zidoo was capable of, which made my 1080p Blu-rays look so close to 4K that I really didn't feel the need to have to upgrade them to 4K anymore. Now, the only reason I bored you with this story is to let you know that after spending over $1,000 on a UHD 5000, which most probably would agree is a lot of money for a media player, I have no regrets. In fact, I think it's some of the best money I've spent on my home theater. But getting back to the point, about a week after getting the UHD 5000, Zidoo actually got back to us and wanted to know if we would be interested in reviewing the Z2000 Pro, which we absolutely were because both the UHD 5000 and the Z2000 share the same video capabilities, and that means that they both should be capable of producing the same great image quality. And after testing the Z2000 Pro, we can confirm the performance as far as video playback goes seems to be identical. But because there are some major differences in other areas, we do plan on making a comparison video to try and determine if the extra cost for the UHD 5000 can be justified. Speaking of cost, the Z2000 Pro is currently selling for $559 on Amazon and fits pretty much right in the middle of their media player lineup. If you're looking to spend a little less than that, they offer two lower price models. The Z20 Pro, which sells for $369, and the Z9X Pro that goes for about $249. And as I mentioned before, all of these units should share the same picture processing capabilities with only minor differences between the range. For example, the lowest end model, the Z9 Pro, does not have a hard drive bay for adding internal storage. To get that, you'd have to jump up to the Z20 Pro. Now, comparing these prices to the NVIDIA Shield Pro for $199, which I've used in my theater for many years and overall been happy with, the Shield is less expensive and gives you the Android TV so you can stream online. But when it comes to local movie streaming, the Shield falls a little short in my opinion. For example, its lackluster HDR to SDR tone mapping, which is very noticeable while using an older projector. That said, before I experienced the Zidoo players, I was pretty skeptical as to whether they could do a better job at streaming local movies compared to my trusty NVIDIA Shield Pro. I mean, it's just ones and zeros, right? Well, if that's the case, then Zidoo must be doing something different when it comes to the algorithm processing those ones and zeros, because there's definitely a noticeable difference. So to wrap things up, I have to say that I'm pretty impressed with the experience that we've got from the Zidoo Z2000 Pro. Aside from the problems we had, like movies failing to match, and the occasional hitch here or there, like experiencing a couple of lockups that had to be resolved by doing a full power off, it was still a really well integrated system that just feels a lot easier to use than managing a full-on media server like Plex. Hopefully Zidoo will address some of the problems we mentioned here with a future firmware update, but the problems still weren't major enough to hamper our experience. And in the end, I feel comfortable recommending the Zidoo players, and as I mentioned, I've already invested a substantial amount of my own money into the UHD 5000, and I'm really happy with the end result. And with that said, I hope you found this video helpful. If you're interested in picking up your own unit, we'll leave a link to Zidoo's page on the Z2000 Pro so you can check it out. Let us know if you have any questions down in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss any of our future content. And as always, have an awesome day.